When the Rockets lost Game 7 to the Warriors on Monday, there were plenty of reasons to point to. The 27 straight missed three-pointers, CP3 injured and not playing, and Steph Curry's ridiculous shooting skills. However, the one thing that upset Houston fans most were the referees. I could think of no one better to go through some of the most troubling calls than Ronnie Nunn, who was an NBA referee for 19 years, head of officials for 5 years, and director of development for 3 more. Ronnie, I'm so glad that you're here to break some of these plays down because there's a lot of people who are really upset. Obviously, it's a Game 7, high-pressure situation, and I'm sure you're familiar with having to ref in these kind of games.
Yeah, they're definitely tough games. And by the way, the series of games on the East and West have been great for fans and everybody. But, you know, the devil is in the details of these plays, and that's what we're talking about today.
Well, let's jump into a detail in the second quarter where we have Harden isolation, and they did plenty of these all series long. They got Jordan Bell, the rookie, on him. And as he goes up for the shot, there's some contact, and we know there's rules about protecting the landing of a three-point shooter. So this was not a call that was made at all. What is your thought on it?
You know, this is a play that really needed a foul. It is slight, but it's enough. I like where the referee is in the position, and I think he might have just taken his eyes off the finish of this play because there is a body bump upon landing. Now, what the problem is sometimes players embellish a situation, and I think because he embellished it, it made the official think that it was more of an embellishment than the real contact. If he just went up normally and came down normally with a slight slant to going backwards or whatever have you, he might have brought better attention than falling to the ground.
Fair enough, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of contact on the way down, and I'm not even sure, you can see him slide down the guy's back, and to me that obviously would mean that there's no airspace for him to land in. But you can see Scott Foster and the trail official is sort of, looking at what's going on up top. Is that the only ref that could grab that call, or can any of them call the landing issue?
I think this play is really one that is either the trail, which is to the right of our screen, with some help of the slot official at the bottom of the screen. But this is really a one-on-one play where I'd like to see the slot take a peek because it's a left-handed shooter. And I always like 2 sets of eyes on 4 players when you have a play like a pick and roll, and we'll see that with a couple of more clips. But on this one, I just think the official who had the play at the top, at the right side, at the trail position, he really could have had this play. What happened? He thought the play was over too soon. He probably took his eyes off the finish. And every play's got to start, develop, and finish to it. And that was the finish. He could have stayed with it. And I think it's a play he would have gotten.
Fair enough. Well, let's look at the next play down. The same kind of situation, although it's more of a pick and roll here. There's guys around the ball. It's sort of fast moving. But certainly when you look at the replay, the swipe in there by Jordan Bell was anything but clean. His hand was in there. Again, no call on this one. What's your interpretation?
Well, here's a play where this is a typical Harden creative play. You got to give him a lot of credit for his creativity here. He knows when he wants to go up when a player's body or his arm is in the wrong place. The question here is for Harden is the NBA has established that a player must have 2 hands on a ball to go into a jump shot. Now, we all know that some people may not, but 95% of the time people have 2 hands on the ball as they begin to go up on the perimeter. So what we have here is a guy whose arm is already in, there's contact, and then comes the grab. Now, the best we could do here is we need a foul. It's definitely a foul, but it might not be a shooting foul. It is that close to a shooting foul, but we need a foul. I would have been very happy if we had a foul on this play. Now, again, Harden is left-handed. The official to the right and near that play is on the right side of him, where he belongs. This is a 4-player situation. On 4-player situations, you need 2 sets of eyes. And that guy at the bottom of the screen, he needs to be up because guess what? That's the only play in town that really needs concentration from 2 sets of eyes and 2 sets of officials there.
Fair enough, and sure, and we're 2 for 2 for anger from the Rockets fans so far. So legitimate gripes again, maybe just 2 free throws on that instead of a three shot foul. But you're right, you got to call sort of something on that. But I'm glad you interpreted the rule properly, because I don't know if a lot of those fans really, appreciate having had the ball in 2 hands when you're going up for a shooting foul specifically. So. Let's move on to the third quarter, because we have another interesting one, which is sort of the same idea we just talked about. The screen is coming up. Clay gets his hand in the cookie jar. They pull really quickly, and they don't give him the 3 free throws. So again, this is the same kind of interpretation that we had in the last one?
Yeah, same type of interpretation. There's 2 plays that have become interesting. Harden has created one of them, and I keep thinking of Carmelo Anthony on the rip-through, who created another one. And we talked about rip-throughs years ago. I remember Larry Bird bringing it up in a conversation when I was the director, that he just didn't like people going out and getting somebody on the side and now creating a shot, on the perimeter. These are perimeter plays. And now we have a Harden play where people, what do? They extend their arm for spacing so they can get around screens. This is all about getting around screens. So with their arm extended, here goes Harden saying, okay, you're going to extend your arm, I'm going to make you pay for it. Do we have a foul? Definitely. But this is, again, a foul as we look through it. And if you stop it at certain points, you can see that his 2 hands are not on the ball yet. The contact occurs first, and then the hands come together for the ball. Again, a excellent call in terms of the new interpretation of how to deal with this. And again, no shooting foul, but in fact a basket. This is much clearer than the previous play.
Absolutely. And yeah, you can see the ball is not in both hands until it's at least shoulder height. And I guess that's a training thing where you can learn to see that, especially with a guy like Harden. So perhaps he'll have to adjust the way he's training these, because he's used to be getting these shots for three free throws, and it's not going to probably happen going forward.
No, it's not going to happen going forward, because they made a decision on 2 hands. Now, I want to say one thing about this. What's good for the perimeter is not necessarily good at close to the hoop. You'd have the same play close to the hoop on a drive with one hand and the other hand hasn't been caught into the ball, let's say, for 2 hands. It would be a foul. So post-up plays drives to the hoop, the same thing Harden does. He gets calls on those. But on the perimeter, he doesn't. And I think it's because the ability of one-handedness on drives. Sure. Into 2 hands or not into 2 hands. So there's a difference between where you are on the floor on this type of action.
Well, that's a great segue to our next clip, which is a drive by Eric Gordon, who goes into the trees. Awful lot of contact. Perhaps we want to have a verticality on one of them, but maybe not the other. So let's untangle this really briefly. Here we got, Jordan Bell coming over, and we have Draymond Green coming down on the Eric Gordon drive. No call was made at all on any of the contact here. So how do you think this was processed?
This is really a tough play. The 2 guys that really have to have this play, and it often happens, is the slot official at the bottom of our screen and the lead official who's dealing with. He can't referee 2 people. He's got to get one, and the slot official's got to get the other. The one that's really super legal is the verticality player. I mean, that's the one the lead official under hoop is looking at. Is he legal? Because he's going right into him. And guess what? He is super legal. Great verticality, and in his space, not a problem. Didn't come forward. The official on the bottom of our screen, he's trying to catch Draymond Green, the secondary type of person that's coming into this play when this play happens. In other words, normally the secondary guy is the verticality guy. In this case, he can best see the secondary guy who was the initial defender. So it's kind of an interesting of swapping, primaries and secondary. Either way, there is toughness on this play. If you don't get it early, I see Draymond Green's arm on the shoulder, maybe a little hand on the shoulder, limiting the height of Gordon's drive. But I actually got to tell you, cosmetically, it looks awful. But when you detail it, it really is an unusual block ball play. It's not really a foul. It's kind of crazy that you can't. Who do you really get for the foul here?
Well, I think the argument would have been that Draymond Green at the end of this brings his right hand down and whacks him right across the wrist as he's trying to then lift it up into the shot. Are you seeing that as a clean block up top by the ball?
I thought that was cleaner. Now, this is my view. Maybe my screen's not as good, what have you. But if he catches him on the wrist, I deal with the answer to that. That's a foul. But I couldn't tell very shortly. So that's the key to this play. Okay. It's kind of complicated, and you got to catch that wrist. If you don't catch it, you really have no right to give somebody something that you really can't catch that close.
Sure. Well, let's move on to our next play, which is a Steph Curry three-pointer in the corner with a little help from Jordan Bell. We got a little dancing going on between him and James Harden. A lot of people were really kind of upset about this, and I think the NBA refs actually weighed in as well, and they felt like it was a correct no call, and their response was the offensive player is rotated when the defensive player comes over the top and pulls him. The defensive player has the opportunity to stop or change direction, but declined, and instead grabbed and pulled him in an attempt to draw an offensive foul. A lot of stuff going on there, a lot of words. Do you feel like they are correct?
Oh, well, I don't understand. Is this like a wash play where they're just washing it out and they got two culprits here? I mean, I get that, but guess what happens in officiating? One is really the problem. Things very seldom happen simultaneously. I don't think the screen is that bad, given screens on the perimeter. I mean, this is a subtle movement. I grant you that. If there's nothing else on this play, I doubt there's an offensive foul by the screener. But again, Harden, creative, embellishes, and pulls. That's the obvious play. And I think to have no whistle is incorrect. And to have a whistle is what we should have had on this play. And by the way, where are the two sets of eyes on this play? The only two is the gentleman on the sideline on the right of our screen and the gentleman of the hoop. As a matter of fact, I'd like to see the gentleman under the hoop move a little maybe towards the end of Houston and take a peek at that screen because he can really see the pull. And you can't let certain plays just go. You got to get them. Listen, whether it's at the end of the game or it's the third quarter, 5:24, take care of this business now because the players are very happy to put it on you at the end of a game. If you don't clean them up all through the game, the last part of the game when they're going at it the best way they can to win, those are the tough times, and those are the times they got to be scared about, should I do this? Because the ref is going to call it. He's called, and that's what we're not seeing here.
Fair enough. And they also had a little bit of a component of out of bounds coming back in, which they actually got right. I wasn't sure, but now that we see frame by frame, Steph Curry's right foot is out of bounds, and then before he catches it, he gets left foot inbounds, it appears certainly, although it's close, and then right foot inbounds just before he touches it. And I think that's the key here is, right, you got to get both feet down on the inbound part of the court before you touch the ball, right?
You mean if you go out of bounds?
Yes.
You only need 1 foot back in.
Okay. Oh, okay.
But but obviously the other foot must be not out of bounds.
Right.
Yeah. You only need 1 foot back in.
All right. That's another one of those we'll get on the court and demonstrate because people get that wrong all the time. And I want to know if we can get on the court and demonstrate some versions of that. But that'll be for another time. We got one last one, which is basically another replay of two of the other plays where they didn't get free throws for a foul on what looked like a shot. And again, I guess it's going to be a broken record here. The referees were able to see that he didn't really have both hands on the ball as he began the shot, and they didn't want to give him 3 free throws.
On this play, Coach, I think what we have here is a little something different. This is a body bump with the two hands. And why does Durant get into more of a body bump? I think the screener for Harden gets a legal screen, starts out, but I think he adds a little something subtly. And when he adds that, there's the bump. While Harden, I believe in this play, is in a shooting motion. There's not a hand in there, but the body does bump him. And this should be a three-point shot, in my view, from what we can see here. Little different than the other with the arm. This extra piece by Anderson on the screen bumps Durant into him, and I think at that time Harden has his hand on the ball with two hands.
Fair enough. All right, so they kind of got a little bit wrong, but at least they got something going on there. And I guess the Rockets did not even get the free throws there on the bonus yet. But good stuff. Whether or not we want to blame these kind of fouls for a loss like that, I don't know. There's a lot of other factors that we detailed in our last video, so we'll have to see. It doesn't make the Rockets fans feel any better. But Ronnie, thanks for coming on the show and giving us some better insight into what happened in Game 7.
Yeah, big-time game. And by the way, collectively, these last few games by the staff of officials that have been working well. The game is a little different game to referee right now with a lot of shooting, a lot of these kind of plays. But the officiating has been, we're talking about detail here, but it has been very good, and they're still learning. We learn from players all the time, their tricks. We catch up with them. And Harden and some others have been very creative, and rightly so. But we need to catch up on some of those actions. For sure. Well, thank you for coming on the show and breaking this down for us, Ronnie. And don't forget, sports fans, at BBallBreakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? You in, Ronnie? Always with you and always in. Thanks, Coach.